suffered in the presence of his children. And cried, O Manmata, you are responsible for the humiliation I've suffered. You shall suffer at the hand of the same Ishwar. May you be burnt up by him. Manmata played it. How unfair you are. You created me. You endowed me with extraordinary powers and you told me to try them. It was at your instance that I put arrow to bow. Now, how can you blame me for what has happened? Brahma saw the logic of his protestation and slightly modified the curse. तो मनमता ने मतलब ईश्वर ने सॉरी ब्रह्म भगवान को भी एकदम मनमता से हिल गए थे ना वो उसको देख के तो ब्रह्म देवता ने मनमता को श्राप दिया था मनमता ने कहा भाई आप मेरे को श्राप कैसे दे सकते हो आपने ही मुझे क्रिएट किया यू नो अब आप कह रहे हो कि मैं आप तुम्हें श्रापित कर रहा हूँ Rati in man whose eyebrows were more perfectly arched than Manmata's brow, whose breasts were lotus bud like, pointed with nipples dark as honey bees, and so hard that a teardrop falling on them would rebound in a spray. And the line of downy hair between those breasts made Manmata wonder if by chance his bowstring had been transposed there. Her thighs, smooth as banana stalks, tapered down to her delicate feet, pink tinted at heel and toe. Her hands were like sprouts of labanam, and her tresses were like monsoon clouds. Manmata was overwhelmed with love for Rati and married her. Brahma, still smarting under the reprimand of Ishwar, told Manmata, you and Rati will go with all the weapons at your command and attack Ishwar so that he may be brought to the same predicament that he found us. But there must be an object of his love, said Manmata. You're not to worry about that, said Brahma lightly. I will provide you with a valuable ally. He heaved a sigh and created Vasant the spring, who accompanied Manmata, carrying with him all his apparatus of attachment, enchantment. The song of the summer birds, green shoots, sap rising in their core, birds and blossoms, and evening breeze, and the magic car, all of which induced a mood of love. नहीं. With these preparations, Manmata went to try his strength on Ishwar and returned to report. I've never been so much ignored in my whole existence. I followed Ishwar everywhere to Kailash, Meru, and all over the Himalaya mountain. But he showed no awareness of my presence. Vasant helped me by blowing a sweet southern breeze, the sort of thing that generally intoxicates the mind, but it had no effect on Ishwara. I spent all my 5 arrows, but they fell ineffectually. I created a couple of Chakravarka birds, which engaged in love play in his presence, but he looked at them coldly. I created bigger creatures such as a peacock coupling with its hen, but he might have been looking at a lump of clay for all it mattered. I went further, created love symbols even out of other objects, huge trees intertwined by creepers and so forth. I implored Vasant to be more effective and he filled the scene with scent of champak, ponaga, patala, malika and tail flowers. The mingled fragrance overpowering all discretion. I made virgin lotus buds unfold their petals, but Ishwar was completely indifferent. Manmata looked doleful and defeated. I could not stand it. I had to flee from his burning presence, he concluded. Brahma felt completely frustrated. He heaved a big sigh, and out of it were born strange, grotesque creatures whom he sent into Ishwar's presence to execute provocative dances and gestures. And he told Manmata to go a second time. Accompanied by Rati and Vasant, Manmata sallied forth obediently, but came back with the same story of defeat. We'll deviate for a moment from Manmata, said the storyteller, and watch the entry of a totally new personality, which brings on a set of new responsibilities for Manmata. At about this time was born one Vajranga, meaning limbs of diamond, a son named Tarka, at whose birth all the omens spelt ill for the world. Jackals howled, donkeys brayed, and the skies darkened, and strange, unholy noises filled in the air. When he grew up, Tarka performed penance for 1000 years in order to attain strength and invincibility. He underwent remarkable modifications. For 100 years, he stood on one toe and prayed with upraised arms. He lived on water for 100 years. And for 100 years. And for 100 years, he poised himself on bare rock and prayed. From his head emanated a strange glare which threatened to reduce the universe to ashes. All the Devas and their chief Indra were terrified. They thought that their end had come and approached Brahma to stop this frightening experiment. Brahma intervened, but Tarka refused to budge or stop his death. Brahma appeased him by offering him boons. He accepted the compromise, agreeing to stop his performance on the condition that he was granted invincibility under all circumstances. When Brahma grumbled that this sort of a boon led to a lot of trouble and must be have a limitation, Tarka said, "Very well, I will accept this limitation. No one in any of the world should be able to kill me except one born to Ishwar." And he smiled, because Manmata's failure with Ishwar was common knowledge in all the worlds. Brahma understood that this might be a trap and hesitated, but Tarka was adamant. "I've said now, I've had my say, granted, or please leave me and continue my penance." Brahma took a few moments to make up his mind. He remembered that Indra and his followers were anxiously waiting for his return with the news. So he said, "Granted." With his strength and power assured, Tarka gave up his austerities and became the ruler of Sonitapura. He tyrannized all over the world. He oppressed the weak and the strong alike, grabbed assaulted women, and grabbed whatever he wanted. He snatched away Indra's great elephant Iravat. From the rishis he took Kamadhenu, the cow that yielded whatever one desired, and the mother of Sabal. The sun god parted with his chariot horse and was so afraid of incurring Tarka's displeasure that he tempered his heat and light. The god of wind himself was so nervous that he seldom showed his presence except in the gentlest of vows.
Tarika nahi, Tarak.
Tarak. Vishnu, who was asked by other gods for his help and who always acted as a redeemer, sent his famous discus flying across the heavenly spaces. Generally chopped off everything in its way, but now it flopped upon Tarka's chest harmlessly, and he stuck it on a rope as a medallion. Brahma was again approached, but he said, "I cannot destroy the person to whom I promised indestructibility. If someone plants a poison tree, it is for others to uproot it. The planter himself cannot do it." Vishnu and Brahma were helpless. Out of the trinity, only Shiva was left. The gods held an agonizing council amongst themselves and decided to appeal to Shiva. Being the embodiment of Ishvara, he could help by begetting a son who alone could destroy Tarak. He could not have a son unless he gave up the rigor of his penances. Into the story now comes another person, Parvati, the daughter of Himavan, the lord of Himalayas. The wife of Himavan had been a devotee of Shakti, the mother goddess. When our baby was born, all the signs indicated in the coming of a savior. At a moment when they were alone, the infant whispered to a mother, "I'm the real Shakti, the goddess to whom you have prayed all your life. You are indeed blessed."
Oh, indeed?
Blessed. And revealed herself in all her glory, but resumed her infant form instantly. The child grew up normally. When she attained girlhood, she accompanied her father on his visits to Kailasa, where Shiv was meditating. Shiv advised Himavan, "Don't bring any woman into these precincts. I wish to have no distractions." But the girl was fascinated by this austere being and insisted on accompanying her father wherever he visited Kailash. She reached the stage of wanting to stay behind in order to serve Shiva as a disciple attendee. She brought him flowers for worship, washed his feet, and kept watch so that he was not disturbed. The gods realized after a desperate search for a conqueror of Tarak that Parvati could be their best ally. If only Shiva would take an interest in interest in her as a woman, but they wailed at the memory of his indifference. They turned to Manmat and said, "You can be a savior, the god of love. Sharpen your weapons and attack this blind, austere man. Make him make him take an interest in the girl, and the rest will be easy." Manmat looked desperate. "Not again. Ask me to soften the heart of a Rakshas with the soft shafts of love, or to overwhelm the gods, but leave me off or out if it is Shiva who is Ishwar, before whom I am powerless and feel like a speck of dust. I can do nothing with him." मनमत ने कहा, भैया मैं तो कुछ नहीं कर पाऊंगा, शिव के केस में जो है मुझे हटा दो. All the gods appealed to him jointly. "You are the god of love. You may have failed once or twice for various reasons, but is there any creature who is unaffected by your shafts? What is your existence worth unless you help us? Last time you may have failed, but you will succeed now. Parvati is always there attending to his wants. She has youth and beauty. It is up to you to make Shiv notice her qualities." They are it. "You must help the gods to survive, others Tarka will soon exterminate us." So Manmat went to Kailash with all his armory polished and sharpened. He saw Shiv sitting stock still and meditating, and himself behind the shrubs. Parvati was as usual in attendance. Manmat waited for the right moment for setting Vasant to blow a cool breeze and bring into operations all his enchantments. Shiv noticed the air around him and wondered for a moment at the out of season spring manifestations. Manmat bent his sugarcane bow and sent off the first shaft, timing it for the precise moment when Parvati should come close to his presence with a tray of flowers in hand. Normally, Shiva never noticed anything more than the flowers when they were brought. Now, opening his eyes slightly, he noticed the fingers holding the tray and the redness of their tips. "Are these fingers the bloom?" he reflected. He checked his thought and shut his eyes again and resumed his meditation. Manmat bided his time. He commanded Vasant to create the plaintive note of a cuckoo calling its mate. As the Shiva opened his eyes and saw Parvati busily sweeping away the dry leaves shed by the trees. And Manmat sent a second far shaft. Shiv kept his eyes open a little longer, and in that time wondered, "Are those really lips or red cherries?" He checked his mind again. One by one the shafts went home. Shiv found himself opening his eyes at the slightest rustle and watching Parvati, who had also been hit by the shafts. She did not perform her duties with the usual self forgetfulness. She seemed to tarry a little longer in the line of her master's vision. Her hips swayed and her movements became studied and seductive. Shiv now became rather reflective on the subject of this person. Are those eyes or blue lotus? Does that chant emanate from a human being or from a koel bird? Is this the gait of a human being or of a spotted deer? How all the aspects of a beauty in the whole universe seem to be concentrated and contained in one person. Such a delight to the sight. What should she not be in the embrace? He found it difficult to turn his back mind to the normal course action of meditation. He looked more keenly at Parvati and realized that she was the same girl she had been yesterday, although he was making fresh discoveries about her.
Hmm?
Although he was making fresh discoveries about her. He wondered what this might be due to. He subjected his present stirrings to a keen examination and realized that some extraneous influence was at work. He saw the mischief maker behind a bush. The love god was aiming his fifth shot, found to his dismay that it fell off ineffectually because the victim had become aware of its coming. Shiv's anger was roused at the disturbance planned by the love god. When Manmat peeped again to decide whether he should begin the series all over, Shiv opened his third eye on his forehead. A glance from this eye reduced all objects to their true substance as if assayed by the fire. With the third eye, once upon a time, Shiv had reduced to ashes the whole city of Asuras called Tripura. It struck Manmat now like a flame, and he shivered up and was reduced to a handful of ashes immediately. Shiv reduced his meditation, having disposed of the distraction, and later moved away from Kailash itself. defeating Parvati's plans. She went back to her father and lamented, I failed. Shiv is gone. At this time, the sage Narad, the great entangler and disentangler of affairs of several worlds, arrived at Himavan's palace and advised him, Parvati. If you tried to overcome Shiv with your youth and physical beauty, you would not succeed, since such things evaporate when his third eye is opened. If you want to win Shiva, you'll have to depend on your own inner resources rather than physical charms and the aid of creatures like Vasant and Manmat. Go back to your mountain solitude and pray. The sage also taught her a mantra of great potency, Om Namah Shivaya, and advised her to keep her mind fixed upon it, to the exclusion of every other thought. Parvati went away to the mountain and undertook a great penance. Meanwhile, Rati, Manmat's wife, approached Shiva and cried, You have reduced me to widowhood, please save me. Shiv said, I grieve for you, but I can do nothing now. Your husband risked himself, I cannot help you. He is not lost, he is bodiless, that is all. His
He
gro-
is?
he is not he is not lost, he is bodiless, that is all. His grossness has been burnt up, but he lives in essence. I grant that his activities may continue though unseen, and I also grant that he may stay about my presence along with my other unseen, invisible attendants. Oh, how long, how long? How long shall I remain the wife of an unseen husband? Rati cried. You will both be reborn ultimately in Dwapar Yuga and become husband and wife again. Rati had to content herself with this promise. Brahma and others intervened and explained, O great God, what have you done? You destroyed the God of love. How are the functions of the universe to go on? After all, he did not make mischief but to help us. Shiv explained, he is not destroyed but exists in sublimated state. Parvati's penance began to take effect. On the mountain top, she had a visitor. Shiv assumed the form of an ascetic celebrate, appeared before her and asked, What are you praying for?
ये कौन है हुआ?
पार्वती जी वो कर रही थी ना पूजा कर रही थी ना शिव जी की ओम नमः शिवाय
शिव जी अपीयर हुए.
appear. The youth laughed at her and said, What a simpleton you are. Why do you want Shiv, that rough, rugged, unresponsive fellow who did not hesitate to scorch the poor god of love? A man of unnecessary fury and fire, who smeared his body with the ashes, whose retreat is the graveyard, who's clothed himself with the hide of a tiger, and whose coronet and armlet are live snakes. Nothing is elegant about him. Forget him. When Parvati did not appreciate his advice, the young man replied, He is also proved to be a reckless and inconsiderate husband. Don't you know that once upon a time he was ignored at his father in law's banquet because of his crudities? Stop it, please, cried Parvati. It is sinful to speak ill of a great soul. Equally sinful to let such an evil words fall on one's ear. Leave me now. The young man went away. Presently, Shiva appeared before Parvati with all his grandeur and accepted her as his wife. At the most felicitous moment, once again came Rati, wanting to make a last effort to retain her husband. She appeared before the sporting couple and said, You are so happy now in the felicity of love, whereas the god who began it. She wept and untied the end of her sari and produced a handful of ash. You have reduced my husband to this. She lovingly held up the ashes of one Bandhan. Shiv was in his happiest mood and said, Very well, you shall see your husband immediately in his original form. But remember that he will remain invisible to others. You alone will see him. Now go and be happy with him. He will resume his original form for all others to see only in Dwapar. And the god of love revived from his ashes and joined his wife Rati. Out of the marriage of Shiv and Parvati was born the six-faced god Subramanya, the rider of peacock. His birth foredoomed the career of Tarak. When still small, he led his forces against Tarak and destroyed him in accordance with Tarak's own condition that he should be destroyed by no less a being than one born to Shiva. और ये कहानी खत्म.